All right, welcome back, everybody. We have a special guest tonight. My mom, Maria Cole, is on with us to talk about this week's movie. Say hi, Mom.
Hi.
And she's not promoting anything, but it is her birthday, so happy birthday.
Thank
Although by
you.
the time everybody hears this, it will no longer be your birthday, so I suppose that doesn't make it make sense for me to tell everybody. Yeah, so this week we're talking about The Harder They Fall, which is from 2021, I believe.
Yes.
Yep, 2021, by James Samuel. So
This is a Western that knows the genre was never as 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 important as the movie made it look. So this felt to me like the entire point of the film was about revenge, and it wasn't necessarily about this is a Western and it had to hit all very specific points, although many of them it does in the way that the film plays out. And Samuel came at it like a musician director, so the film feels like rhythm first, and then almost like the scenes are composed as tracks on an album.
yeah,
Definitely.
so the reason we picked this one is we wanted something different. You know, we went with the classic High Noon, then a spaghetti western with Once Upon a Time in the West, and then we went with a modern western, like it was filmed modern and it takes place modern. With last week with Hell or High Water, and the reason we picked this one is it was different. It was, you know, we wanted variety. And this provided that because this was kind of an interesting mix of a lot of the classic trope stuff in there mixed with modern sensibility music wise. Um, yeah, so um, I will say that I don't necessarily agree with everything you said, Alex, because I do think that the big thing that I thought about this movie, you're right about it being edited like a music video almost in a lot of ways, but it's I think that the way it was concerned with being a western is that it's modern. You're right about the revenge part, but it's modern
Mm.
mythology, and like we I think uh, as a society think of westerns as American mythology, and this is very much almost more so in that vein than uh High Noon or Hell or High Water. Once Upon a Time in America is very mythological in that sense. But the other two are more grounded, and this is more of that mythology style.
Okay. No, and that is the beauty of cinema, is we can all have slightly different expectations of what a film is before we watch it or even after we've seen it. It may be helpful for Maria if we make it clear what all these sections are
I
when we
already
talk
did.
about it. Oh, okay, okay, cool, cool, cool.
Yeah, yeah.
All right. So Maria, what are your takes or thoughts for pre-production?
Well, you mean when they were planning? I'm sorry, this is
Yeah,
all
the
new to
pre-production is when
me.
we talk about like why we picked the movie and what did I say? What we were focusing on. So it probably there's probably not a lot for you to dive in on this one, but you
Yeah,
know, it's also one of our shorter sections. So
yeah. But
um,
well, I think they definitely planned it. It, it there were parts that they wanted it to really have the most visual and um impact, like right from the beginning. And as
oh yeah.
soon as
Hmm.
I turned the movie on, I realized I had seen this movie before, but because I remembered the initial scene, but
When
and
you
I
told me
and,
that, I was like, yeah, that's awesome.
well, I watched it and I couldn't. I mean, I'm like, okay, I remember that character, I remember that character, but it was the basic plot, and I wasn't really listening. You know, like when you watch a movie just to
Mhm.
enjoy it. So last night I was like, okay, I can watch and I can kind of take notes and see what I'm, learning. So
So, Redwood City matters because it turns the conflict into something that's more than personal revenge.
Oh,
Rufus,
well, let's explain to the audience because I would imagine that the audience very often has not seen this movie. This is not.
oh,
This
good
was.
point. Yeah,
This isn't like this isn't a classic. This is fairly new and it came out.
Four
I
years
think there's
ago.
yeah. It came out also during COVID, and so there's like a
Oh,
lot
good point.
of
Okay.
here that people might have missed. So we open with a Idris Elba playing the bad guy, like right off the bat, he's the bad guy because he comes in and he kills this preacher and his wife right in front of their son,
Mm-hmm.
who almost immediately you realize is Jonathan Majors, who is Nat Love. And then the whole rest of the movie is about Nat Love trying to get revenge on Rufus. What's his name? Rufus Buck. Yeah, Rufus
yes,
I think
Buck.
it's Rufus. Yeah.
And so that's the whole point of the movie. And so you have that. We establish the stakes immediately, and then we go into the style and detail pretty quickly. We see that both of them are outlaws that have crews,
Mm-hmm.
and both. What's interesting is like especially we haven't really seen this style as far as like a crew versus a crew or a band of outlaws versus a band of outlaws in this month. We saw almost a little bit of it with Once Upon a Time in the West, except that like we very quickly don't see Cheyenne's crew. Like they're there at the beginning,
Yeah, they're
but
there at
then
the
it's
beginning
just
and then they're
Cheyenne.
not. Yeah.
So like this idea of a band of outlaws versus a band of outlaws is interesting, and pretty quickly we're like, okay, the side we're supposed to side with and the side we are supposed to be rooting against.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you're right. They sorry, go ahead, Mom.
I was just going to say that the side you're supposed to root for gets a little, for a little while, it gets a little confused because of the fact that um, the whole fact that it implies that Rufus was building this town for all the people,
Yeah, yeah,
and
that's a good point.
it wasn't actually how it played
I
out.
think
But
it
so
was
then
True.
it was a little. I was like, oh, okay.
it was he was just he's a bit in the context of this town of, was it Redwood? Is that what it's called?
Yes, I
Mm-hmm.
think so.
In
Redwood City.
Redwood City, he is a bit of a demagogue. He is building it for them, but it's really so that he can be the head of it. Um, and I don't necessarily want to talk about the twist ending because there is a bit of a twist ending, but I would say that the twist ending may reveal other intentions, although that's open to interpretation.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, one thing I really liked. So just to dive in with the production style, one of my big takeaways at the beginning, I was like, this, we've now watched 4 westerns in a row, and this one felt, when they're in the city, in the towns, it felt the most soundstagey to me.
Yeah.
And I was like, I don't love that, and I wonder if it's a budgetary thing or what. And then as we move through the movie, you realize that the reason why is because it's so specifically designed. So like you don't necessarily notice until the end, but that the towns are very color coordinated in their themes.
Yeah.
So like the first couple towns are, they're neutral Western town colors. Then we see Redwood City, and Redwood City is very vibrant and colorful and alive.
Mm-hmm.
Then we see, I cannot remember the name of the city with white people in it. And
It's
they're like,
very
that
white.
it's a white city, and it's devoid of color, like
Yeah.
literally devoid of color. Like the sand is white, the the buildings are white, and I'm like, okay, I didn't, I didn't fully acknowledge that, because even when we saw Redwood City at the first time we see Redwood City, it's colorful, but it's not what that final shootout, the final battle, that's the last 15-20 minutes. There's like super vibrant colors. There's when the two women are fighting each other, there's the big buckets of what look like spice, like what is it when in India when they do the when they throw the colored dust, it looked like that to me, like for Diwali or whatever that
Mm-hmm.
is. Like it was those big things of red and yellow and blue and all
Oh,
these.
oh, yeah. I know what you're talking about. That celebration. Yeah.
Yeah. And so it looked like that, and you're like, oh, this is so. And then, with retrospect, you're like, oh, yeah, that town was
Maysville.
Maysville was completely devoid of color. I'm surprised they didn't call it Mayoville, because that's very clearly what they were going for there.
It is, but I think it was I think it was playful that like you said, you didn't really notice it at first that
Yeah.
Mayville was so just pale, and then now that we're critiquing it after that, because oh yeah, buildings, the
Hmm.
ground, the people, like it's so much of it was delicately, at least in the scene, delicately kind of presented, but then after you realize, no, it was 100% intentional. Like, no, it was
Yeah.
supposed to be that striking.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I really liked. I think that if I were to go back and watch this again, I would notice that production design more, and it would ring truer, because it was more intentional than budget constraints, like what I assumed at first. Although it was Netflix, so it's also like maybe it's not budget constraints. I assumed it was like how they all are shooting on sound stages. Like Star Wars now is in those giant, what do they call them, the volumes, where you've got a big screen and that's the
Yeah,
background. And I just assumed it was that, as opposed to, like, I know with High Noon there was like a town in LA, or like they made a town and they just used it for all the westerns, and it felt like a western,
yeah.
and then you've got the
Well,
same.
there was some filming that was done on very specific like locations for this film,
Yeah.
and you had actually I looked it up. The Eves Movie Ranch in Santa Fe
Hmm.
was used for Maysville, and the Cerro Pelon Movie Ranch, another specific like filming location that's meant for this style of film, was the primary location for Redwood City.
Yeah. I didn't know that. I also knew, like, the outdoor shots. Like, there's some stuff where you're like, oh, they're in a big expansive space now,
Oh
but
yeah.
when the towns felt sound stagey. But
Oh, they did, and that might. Do you think that was because they were the field of view was more narrow, or do you think it's just because that's what this part of New Mexico looks like? It looks so idealistic for what you would want this film to be.
well, it's also the field of view being narrow. If they were using stuff that was pre-existing filming ranches, but they were decorating them differently, which, like,
Oh
there's
yeah.
no way that they had a filming ranch that was that white. Like, that was
No, no,
done
no.
by
Of course not.
production design, so they may have narrowed the scope so that we could keep it limit,
Okay.
so that you could, like, you're not repainting the entire town, you're
Yeah.
painting this section,
Good
which you'll
point.
then return to its previous mode or whatever.
Yeah,
So
I
that could
understand
be
what you're
why
thinking.
that
Okay.
was looking like that. But again, I didn't know that, because I just assumed, I didn't realize how intentional and how specific that side of production was. Although costumes were, like, very specific.
Yeah. Very true. What do you have, Maria, for anything production wise?
So I think that really set it up. It didn't. It, I really liked the movie. However, I think that it worked for what they did. Is they really, like, here's like a block. Here's like the next block. With
Hmm.
its own music. Next block has its own music, and so and it also tried, so successfully to get you like within the first minute of the show,
Mhm.
get you right, like, wow, this has just happened. And
Yeah.
then lead you on to what happens in the future. I thought it flowed, even though, like I say, they're blocks. It was I don't know if blocks is the right word I want to use.
Yeah,
Does that,
sections. Yeah.
yeah,
Like,
sections. And it kind of went, this one's done now. Okay, we're going to do this
mhm.
one. Um,
Yeah. I agree with that.
And that was my feeling with Samuel kind of treating it like tracks on an album. Is yeah, they
mm-hmm,
all flowed together, but like when you're opening an old vinyl and you're pulling the gatefold open, you have this expectation that it all is the same album. There's some cohesion to this, but each of them can be appreciated in their own sections.
Yeah.
And when I made my notes, I went back and looked at specific scenes, like ones for Redwood City, and I noticed that they all could almost function on their own. Some of
mm-hmm,
the scenes or some of the sections,
Yeah.
and Redwood City matters. The big note that I made here is Redwood City matters because it turns the conflict from the beginning of the film into more than personal revenge. Rufus isn't just hiding, he's trying to build a kingdom in
Mhm.
Redwood City. And he's
mm-hmm.
trying to build this kingdom in a way that obviously speaks to the racial divide, but doesn't
Definitely.
it doesn't necessarily make it as obvious as, say, when we did Black History Month and we watched Malcolm X, where there was clear, like, obvious
Yeah.
differences. There's a difference, but they're
Yeah.
cowboys. So
So
there's enough of an obfuscation layer to this.
I agree. I think that you're right about him trying to build this kingdom for his people.
Mm-hmm.
And I think when you look at it as almost a meta commentary on what the movie is trying to do, because we have them, like I said, Westerns have been referred to very often as American mythology.
Mm-hmm.
And they don't 100% exclude black people, but they pretty much exclude black people from
Especially as
being
leading characters. They'll be
especially as
there as
leading.
villains,
Right,
but
right. And so, like,
They're
I mean,
also put in as the fool a lot of the time. Like
right,
if you
right, right,
watch
right.
the
oh,
Yeah.
old movies,
Yes.
and it's kind of
Yeah.
reversed in this movie because there's not a lot of white people in the movie, but the ones that there are, they're all like,
Yeah.
kind
Yeah.
of silly and
But
okay.
so one thing that made me think that that's what he's doing too is when you look at a lot of when you think about actual mythology, there's a chance that some of those people existed in real life. Like, like there's like the Johnny Appleseed mythology. There's, there's it's possible that there was a person named Hercules who was really strong, and that's what that legend became, right? So there is a lot of that. And then when you jump forward to our, the last century and a half, we have Jesse James and Bonnie and Clyde and all these people who got fictionalized, like they're real people, but like Jesse James has been, portrayed 100 times in 100 different ways, and all the characters that are in, like what's the one with Val Kilmer?
The Doors.
No, that's a western.
oh, I
It-
can't think of the name of it.
A Val Kilmer Western?
It's one of the biggest. It's like one of the most popular westerns of the last 50 years. It's
I mean, of all people, she should know it. Because she's a big Westerns fan. No kidding.
yeah.
Is that Tombstone?
Tombstone? So
Tombstone,
Tombstone is Wyatt Earp. Like what? These are real people that got changed into, like, who knows if their romances and their motivations were anything like these movies. And so I don't know if either of you knew this going in, but Nat Love's a real person, and Rufus Buck is a real person, and obviously their lives were almost certainly not the way they're portrayed in this. But that's the same thing we've done with in Tombstone with Wyatt Earp and with Billy the Kid and Jesse James, and like so.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not only giving Black people a Western where they are the main characters, but it's also saying like we can be this too. And there was lots of like,
well, they were definitely bigger than life, the
right,
characters.
right. And I think part of the benefit of doing that with Outlaws in, you know, whether it's Jesse James or it's Nat Love, is there isn't the same sense that you have to be reverent. If you did this with Harriet Tubman or Booker T. Washington or any of those, like you weren't like reverent or at least like trying to stick within the thing, it could seem disrespectful. It's same thing with white versions of those. You know, I mean, Abraham Lincoln Vampire Hunter, but like you know, if you did like George Washington, you know, Zombie Hunter, people might get a little pissed off, right? Abraham Lincoln Vampire Hunter is a real thing, Mom. Just so you know, like I don't know if you've heard of that.
I figured it was. I didn't think you just came up with that.
But like there is a certain level of like we need to have a certain respect for those people.
Yeah.
Whereas we don't have to have that respect for outlaws. And there is something about that like outlaw spirit of like, you know, this country was founded by breaking the law, and then you know, like we spread west in a lot of cases that was a fairly violent and maybe not illegal, but like, you know, like, so like that mythology doesn't necessarily translate as bad. It just there is no reason why people aren't gonna get upset that you changed Nat Love's story or that you changed Jesse James's story, you know, like because they're not revered the same way.
Yeah.
One of the things I noticed is that the two gangs you just said about not being reverent, we don't have to, you know, like them or whatever.
Yeah.
You really feel when you watch this movie, they're both they're all outlaws.
Yeah.
All of them. And yet you can still pick a side, which side you want to win.
Yeah.
You know, and in most outlaw movies, you just want all the bad guys to die.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Well, you just sometimes maybe you want everyone to die. I don't know. I haven't watched a Western in a long time. Although I do love them.
I will say, I think that they to help tell us where we're supposed to go on, like who we're supposed to side with. We get Delroy Lindo is not an outlaw. He kind of acts as one within the context of the movie to some extent, but he's an actual lawman. And then we get Cuffy, who is, she's a bouncer essentially. She's like, you know, like she's not part of the gang in that way. She works for Mary, who had been an outlaw, but she works for Mary in a legitimate enterprise. And she's just the person there that makes sure you're not bringing guns into the bar or the restaurant. So like Cuffy and
I loved her character.
Oh, she was great. Yeah.
She's cool,
she's an amazing. So I'm watching, I don't know if you guys have heard of the show Rooster. It's by the guy who wrote Ted Lasso and Shrinking, but it's starring Steve Carell. And she plays like kind of one of the like I think she's supposed to be the love interest. The season hasn't wrapped up yet, but I was watching this week's episode, and then immediately when it was over, I started watching this the other night, and I was like, "Oh, she looks 100% different." And she played Emmett Till's mom a few years ago. She's got like I had never heard of her until like 2 years ago, but she's got range. She, you know, people said she should have been nominated for an Oscar for playing Emmett Till's mom. She's great in this. She's really like maybe the best character in this. And then she's great in Rooster, which I was like, oh, that's pretty cool. To you know, when you see somebody come out of nowhere and all of a sudden they've got all these, you know, different things.
Danielle Deadweiler.
Yeah. And
that's her name?
Yeah.
Yeah. You'd remember her face, also, even if they made her up differently.
Except that she's like kind of making her eyes like buggy in this movie a lot, and she doesn't like she's not like that at all in the other thing I saw with her. and so she looks very different. Like she's much prettier than she is in this movie in real life.
But
Which
you can tell by looking at her
yeah,
character. Like I kind of found it funny that it took them so long to figure out that she wasn't a boy.
well, I think that the way that that works is that you've got the other kid who is clearly like young, right? What's his name? The other kid that's like kind of Beckworth. Beckworth is, I would guess he's supposed to be 17, 18, and
Yeah.
he looks not much different than her in that sense. Like this just looks like a young person,
Right.
like a young boy, and so she looks like a young boy instead
Mm-hmm.
of looking. I mean, as soon as they reveal it, it's clear, and I like that he's like, I thought I was falling in love with a fella, or falling for a fella. And he's like, I'm so relieved. That part was really funny to me.
And I love how it's fella. Like
Yeah.
even the terminology used, I enjoyed that.
I really liked the mixing of period correct and period incorrect language in this movie too.
Yes,
Because there is that, like, I thought I was falling in love with a fella, and then there's later on, it's like there's no way anyone back then said whatever, wording that they used, and I'm like, it really flowed well for me. I loved the cast of this. That's the other thing.
Yeah.
Is
Yeah.
like this is a like heavy hitter cast. It was funny too because like a few people I hadn't really seen in stuff like this. So like Damon Wayans Jr. is the guy with the bad teeth at the beginning when they
Mm-hmm.
hold up that, and he's like the one Red Hood gang guy that is left standing. And I'm like, oh, like I
recognized him right away.
Yeah, no, I recognized him, but I've never seen him play a bad guy before. Like I've seen him as Coach on New Girl, and I've seen him on. He's like on Shrinking. He is like a really like sweet dude, and I actually saw him live in performing stand up this summer, and like he's just so like charming and like goofy, and to see him in this, I was like, oh, this is completely different.
What character was that?
He was Monroe Grimes. He's the one that he was the beginning when they first have the shootout with the Red Hood gang.
He was kind of crawling on the ground trying to
I think
not die.
and then they brought him back to Nat, and Nat was like, let him live, so that whatever.
I think it's crazy that Damon Wayans Jr. is 43. Like he's the exact same age as me.
Yeah. And then well, that's probably because his dad became famous after he was born. Like
there's that.
And then I really like Lakeith Stanfield plays Cherokee Bill, Mom. He is like one of the greatest actors like of this generation. Like he's probably 10 years younger than me, but he's been in stuff. Oh no, he's like 7 years younger than me. He's been in all kinds of stuff. We watched him in one of our previous movies on this podcast, Sorry to Bother You. He's that first scene where he's on the train and he's kind of the lead up until they get to the safe or whatever. I loved him in that. And he's so good at that, at playing that like calm, like calm danger. That's like, he's really good at that. Also, side note on this, which is that they mentioned the Book of Clarence. Did you guys catch that when they said that? And there's no Book of Clarence. The next movie by James Samuels is the Book of Clarence, and it stars Lakeith Stanfield. And I was like, oh, I really I wanted to see. It's similar, if I remember correctly. It's similar to like Life of Brian, where it's like a guy whose life basically mirrors Jesus's at the same time. I have not seen it, so but like, yeah, that was that I just thought that was funny because I immediately was like, oh, I wanted to see that movie. And then the other person that was a comedian that I had not seen in anything serious was Dion Cole, who plays the mayor with the gold teeth.
Yep.
Um,
He's your cousin.
yeah. Yeah, he's my cousin. When I was substitute teaching right out of college, I had a kid come up to me and he goes, my last name's Cole. Maybe we're related." And he was a black kid, and he was clearly trying to get me to be like, "No, we're not the same race." And I was like, I don't know, could be. And
Wasn't Dion Cole Monk's brother? Yeah, he was. Wasn't Dion Cole Monk's brother in No.
That was the guy from This Is Us.
Oh, you're right. Sorry, yeah.
No, but Dion Cole is probably most known from, he was on the Conan O'Brien show, where he would do segments where he would do he was Conan's black friend, and he'd give him like black perspective. He'd take Conan to like areas that were exclusively black, and Conan would walk in being like, "Hi, what should I get here?" And like it would be like a restaurant filled with black people. It just like basically pushing Conan out of his comfort zone all the time. So,
all right. So
I've seen him in something, but I couldn't think of what.
Yeah, no, he's hilarious. But in this movie, I'd never seen. He's also. Oh, you've also seen him on the Old Spice ads. That's what he's most famous for.
Yes.
When he's always like to his wife, he's like, "Don't steal my Old Spice." That's. Yeah, I was like, what would you guys know him from? So like I said, I really like the visual style of this. I really liked. There's a few cinematography things that were really cool. The jump zooms. So it would be like, there was a few times where they used that really well. Including when he's at the bar before they introduce Mary, and every time she pounds on the floor with the butt of the rifle, it like jumps to his face and then pound. And I liked that. The few times they use that is really effective. There was a couple times where they did some match edits, which were really cool. During that final fight, there's a guy who gets slammed on the floor of the porch and then goes through the floor, and we see the floor breaking from under, and then we see Mary and the other woman whose name I'm spacing on, Trudy, come through another thing. So it's like floor and it's all in one smooth motion, and then they like roll out, and it's, there were some really cool edits and visual things to give it that style of like that 70s like cinematography with the jump edit, jump zooms, and then that like really frenetic, quick moving energy in the fights to keep us like, oh.
Yeah. And speaking of editing, the pacing is propulsive, but like the trade-off for that is that some characters feel bigger than their screen time. I mean, we're mentioning characters that might have only been in a quarter or less of the film, but they stuck with us because the pacing highlighted their specific scenes. And it's definitely, for me, it was the kind of movie where that energy covers a lot of the structural sins. And honestly, that's, for me, that was kind of part of that frenetic, like you mentioned, fun, where we're moving so quickly from one section to another, or we're not really diving in too much to a specific interaction between two characters. Yeah. I liked how that the pacing kept me just always looking over to pay attention to what was happening. And Westerns do not usually, actually almost ever, have that kind of feel. They're usually much more purposeful in their editing or in their cuts. Yeah. So this was adding to that, tracks on an album kind of feel.
Yeah. I liked that, and I think also when you with everything you just mentioned, there is that sense that they clearly had of doing this purposely. A, the tracks on an album, and B, that like constant like moving and stuff with breaks, like those breaks, because it's clear when he, exhale. They kept saying exhale, and if you read, I had subtitles on because the movie was so loud and so quiet, and Sarah was like, "I don't want to hear gunshots." Well, I'm trying to sleep, so I had it like low, and I was watching with subtitles on, and exhale is like comes up so often on the thing
Yeah.
because they're giving us the audience the chance to, oh, okay, the scene, you have a break right now, like for a second, like catch your breath, like.
And those are the only breaks you get.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Nonstop.
That's true. I mean, we do open with a murder. A double homicide at that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, if there's a weakness, all right, because you were saying it's frenetic, or there's even times where like the subtitles sort of told you now's your chance. It's probably that the ensemble of characters is so stacked that sort of like Fish or other jam bands, not everyone gets the depth they deserve. So when I was watching this, because I am a big fan of music, when I was watching this, I was likening it to like Dead and Company or Fish or these groups that are just comprised of all absolute rock star musicians. And there's these times where I wanted a little more on blank character. I wanted more of that scene. And because we've only got this much time and this much story to tell, I think some of the pace was because there wasn't enough time to delve into that specific character or that interaction between two of them.
So I think that is true, but I also think that is kind of part of the thing.
Part of the point, yeah.
And the fact
I was
that
feeling
like,
that too.
Like you have movies when we didn't cover any of these, but like there, like a big thing in westerns too was the Magnificent Seven style, like and you'd get a lot of big actors for like something like the Magnificent Seven, and it would be this is an all-star thing, and then on top of that, this comes out. Let me see real quick. This came out in 2021, but in like Crazy Rich Asians, for example. Did both of you see Crazy Rich Asians?
I didn't see it.
No.
Okay, you should.
I know
both
of
see
it quite
it's
well.
A great,
yeah,
it's a great film. 2018. But what it did was it showed like, oh, if we stack the cast, and we give a good story, and we stack the cast, and it's stylish, and we do all these things, we can show people that this is a marketable thing where it's always been like, oh, you need like one big white actor. You need one, the two or three white actors that we see in this. I don't know that I've ever seen them in anything. And so what you do is you show that like this formula works. And I don't know how successful this movie was. Crazy Rich Asians was wildly successful. And that director went on to do the Wicked movies. So like he was wildly successful, but when you look at that, you've got like literally at one point I remember watching something about that movie where they're like, we have like every Asian actor that's ever been in anything in this movie, and that was kind of, so you don't have the huge name. I mean, I think Idris Elba is a big name.
I love him.
I think he's a big name, but he's not like the same level. Like you don't have a Denzel. You don't have a Will Smith.
Yeah.
You don't have one of those like box office draw,
right,
like always works no matter what kind of actors. What you have instead is you have 10 people who are just below that level, all kind of there. And I think that's to me, you told I think the story was really good. I think the story is really strong. The style is really strong. There's some like production things that I think could be improved personally, like as far as like there was some cinematography stuff that I didn't like, and there was some editing stuff that I didn't like, and things like that, but like they're all like stylistic things. I'm not a huge fan of slow-mo, so when they're going in and out of slow-mo, I don't love it, but that's a me thing. But like you have something that works pretty well here, and with almost exclusively, like, I don't want to say B, they're not like B actors, but they're not like they're not stars in the same way a Denzel or a Will Smith or a George
Yeah.
Clooney or anybody else is. So you kind of have that where, and I think that's the same thing with Crazy Rich Asians. I'm trying to think like who would be the most list.
But don't you think with if they had characters like that,
Mhm.
Will Smith, that you would kind of already know how the film was going to go because
Well, that's
they
true
just
too.
kind of have their, even though they're good actors, in lots of ways they have their own persona, and that's
yeah.
what you're going to get.
Right.
But
And
with these people, we didn't know, and so you had to learn what the characters were like. And
that's very true. And they come with the baggage of like, Will Smith's gonna win at the end. And and a Denzel, I think, is somewhat like that, although I think Denzel, we have that idea, but I think also, like, if you watch Training Day, he doesn't win in the end of that movie. You watch
he can play a
Gladiator 2, he doesn't win at the end of that movie, and those are very different kinds of bad guys. So Denzel, I think, has the ability, but I also think Denzel shows up, and it all of a sudden it's the Denzel movie with everybody else.
Yeah.
And this isn't a Jonathan Majors movie. This isn't a Idris Elba movie.
True.
This is a really ensemble cast. And I think that it works better because of that, because you don't know what twists and turns might come out of it. Whereas when you get a star, it's a little more straightforward. Even Denzel, who does take big swings and big risks, I think would have given this a different feel.
Right. One of the things I really liked about it, because I liked that the majority of the women, the three main women, were all really, really strong women.
Yeah.
And they didn't need, like, he goes to save her, but he doesn't need to, because she ends up saving herself.
Yeah.
Right? But in the old Westerns, that you'd never really see that. You would see them,
very true.
damsel in distress, we have to save her.
Yeah.
She won't, what will happen to her? She'll be, and they made women, and I can't believe that the women that survived settling the West are little fair.
Yeah.
Oh my!
Exactly. Yeah.
Women.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
That's
I don't
true.
see that at all.
I also think
that's probably more lifelike. More.
Yeah.
I mean, the fighting, obviously. I mean, most women aren't going to fight like that, but
yeah,
most people don't fight like those people did. But
yeah, I think that you're right when you say that the women that settled the West were probably like not going to be what are they? Was it lilies?
Fading. Shrinking violets.
Shrinking violets. I knew it was a flower. They're not going to be shrinking violets. I also think, again, because even though we don't talk very specifically about the race relations, they acknowledge them to some extent. So I think what year is this? It's like 1870s, 1880s. There's a good chance that those women were, if they weren't slaves, they were the children of slaves, or and slaves, I would imagine, are going to be just tougher than your average person. Like, they're
probably survive.
Yeah, and they weren't, women slaves were not necessarily going to be given an easier time of it than the men slaves. I mean, they may have gotten jobs that weren't quite as grueling in some ways, but like this isn't like I've been sitting here fanning myself like we see from women, like white women in the South in that time.
How about the other Westerns we've already watched?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
I mean, even in the other Westerns we've already watched, there's always been this pretty well, all except for Once Upon a Time in the West. She was a little more gritty, but the other women have been softer and more distressed.
I don't know that I agree with that, because when you look at High Noon, you get Grace Kelly, who is a Quaker, and we like think of her as, you know, abstaining from the violence, but she ends up going, and she's the only one who has Gary Cooper's back in that movie. Even she's
Okay.
morally opposed to the violence. She's not like, I'm just a little girl, I can't do this. She is like, no, this is against my morals. And then she's like, well, I'm not going to let my husband go fight a gang by
There.
himself.
Okay.
So, and then she kills the
Yeah.
guy. And
Okay.
then
There's that too. Yeah.
the other woman in that movie, we don't see her like fighting, but she is like, I'm a successful, I'm assuming prostitute. I don't really, they don't quite say it in that movie, but like that's,
They
she's in
none of
her,
the women had a lot of options, but back
yeah,
then, if they were single,
right,
I
but
mean, if they
she's
didn't
Yeah.
have a
Huh.
man to protect them, they didn't have a lot of options.
right, but she's
Yeah.
like very clearly like in charge of herself. Like she's very, so I think, and that probably goes to what you were saying, Mom, about how women back then aren't, like women there back then aren't going to be able to, they don't have the luxury of that women in on the East Coast back then would have had, that are
Hmm.
just, well, we this has been established, this society's been established for the last 200 years or whatever. um you know
One of the things that struck me, and I don't know about the history of it, but I never heard of all white towns and all black towns. I always just assumed there were white towns growing up, and
mhm.
then surrounding them in the outskirts is where people lived. I didn't, and maybe they do or don't have, didn't have
Yeah,
all black. Although I do know, I think there is one, and I can't think. They destroyed it. They came through, and I don't.
that was Tulsa, Oklahoma. It was the black Wall Street. So there,
Yes,
that was during the 19
yes.
teens and 20s. There were two or three black Wall Streets spread out, and they call them that because they were places where black people actually became millionaires, or that day's equivalent of millionaires, by starting their own businesses. There were
Right.
other than Durham, North Carolina, all the others were destroyed violently. Durham was destroyed slowly in a less violent way by putting a highway in the middle of it, which might have like literally happened in the 70s or 80s. But like
Yeah.
those are, the Black Wall Streets, that idea of like black success. Um,
But even not even like a full success one, just like a regular
yeah,
city where they can live and just be,
right. Well, and there
and
were
not have to worry, because you saw how afraid, what was her name again? Puffy?
Cuffy,
No, Cuddy?
Cuff,
Tuffy?
Cuffy.
Cuffy. You saw how when she got to that town, she was afraid
Yeah.
to think about going in there because they were all white, and she, obviously
That
wasn't.
was that was definitely part of her fear. I think part of it was also that she didn't like presenting as a woman,
Yeah.
which they don't get into the detail of that, of whether or not she just like liked the options as a man better, or if she felt like, like we're making this in 2021, so like is this
Hmm.
a comment on gender identity, or is it more like there's a lot more options for a guy, like.
Well, I think if you look through a lot of history things, and I can't think of anyone specific right now, but there are a lot of people who have women who have in the history dressed up as men because they can fight, they can do things that they just couldn't even possibly think
Right,
about, you
right,
know. And the history books are full of them, but
yeah.
I mean, they fight along the men, and the men don't even know, or
Yeah. Are you just describing Mulan?
well, maybe.
I'll make a
Oh,
man
And
out
out
of
of you.
you.
For me, this is a revisionist, and I'm proud of this line. It's my favorite thing. Uh, this is a revisionist Western as pop opera. So this was Tommy to that film. This was that for westerns.
Okay.
So it borrows from that classic iconography, but the tone has a lot of modern like style and swagger. And there are even some stages of it that have almost like comic book confidence in the way that they're presenting the characters or the scenes.
Yeah.
I actually get that, and I think I felt a little bit of the scene. I don't know if you guys have seen Blazing Saddles, and if you haven't, there's something wrong
It's
with you.
fantastic.
So in in certain parts of Blazing Saddles, I could see like the kid with the gun, and he thinks he's so cool, and
Mm-hmm.
you have Cleavon Little in that, and he's cool, and
Yeah.
so like there was humor in there, and then there was a
And
lot of that stuff that could have been taken from the idea from
yeah.
some of that, but
and
not so much as that.
And like you said, when you mentioned it earlier about like black people very often were portrayed when they were in westerns were portrayed as the fool, and
Mm-hmm.
Blazing Saddles flips that too the same way, where
Mm-hmm.
for the most part,
Cool.
other than Gene Wilder, the white people are the fool.
Oh, big time.
And
Yeah.
yeah, and I have not seen that movie in a very long time, and it's not appropriate for Logan, so I probably won't be watching it anytime soon. But yeah, no,
He would love it, but it's not appropriate.
he would love
He would.
except for that. So he would love it, but because of what the N word is now, whenever he he liked Bob Dylan for a while, so we listened to Hurricane, and he goes, Bob Dylan said the N word. I'm like, that's like 50 years ago that song came out, and it's a very different context. So like he doesn't quite understand, and this is a good.
He doesn't understand its history the same.
Well, he doesn't understand
Right.
when you see like white people saying the N word in movies. Like there's a lot of white people saying the N word in that movie. He would not. He'd be like, "Why are they all saying it?" Like, and I'd be like, "It's a joke." Like it's written by the movie was written by Mel Brooks with Richard Pryor. There's so much
Richard Pryor too. Yeah,
there's so much context there that he doesn't get. It's funny. Like one time, someone said something about Indians, like Native Americans, but they said Indians, and
I remember you were telling me about this. Yeah,
and he was like, "Why would they say that about Indians?" And I'm like, "They meant Native Americans." He goes, "Native Americans?" They said Indians, and I'm like, yeah, up until like my 20s, they called Native Americans Indians. I mean, there was a good
So
portion
it's
of my
cowboys and Indians.
yeah.
That's what we used to say when we were kids.
So like it's a good thing that like they're getting out of that, but it is like there's a huge context missing. So like I don't think I could show him like those movies without having to do so much back explaining. Which is a good thing. But like it will eventually mean that like there will be just a giant disconnect in what we can enjoy together. But
yeah, for now. So yeah. I really feel that this film is correcting the genre of the Western while also showing off that like confidence inside it. And there's an idea of flipping the race here, but it's not in a way that feels like it's trying to make it's making a meta point. It's not making a direct point. So it's not Malcolm X where we're talking about the white people have pushed us and this is our breaking point, or in Milk where the community has pushed us and us as the gay community have met our point. This is correcting kind of the older tropes in that genre for modern times, but also doing it in a way that is not directly on the face. It is more of a background, less obvious, like you were mentioning. The town is white, the sand is white, the buildings are white. Like it's more, it's there, but it's not so direct.
It's the micro, not the macro, and that really works well because they acknowledge, like, oh, that's a white town, that's why they'll have more money, and me going in there, there's more danger than if I was robbing a black town. So there is an acknowledgement that like white people are still in control of this society, but this is a small closed society within the bigger society.
Yeah.
And so we get to see, and and therefore we do get to see like the white people being the fool, and all of that within that context, while maintaining the like verisimilitude of it's our society. It's just a small pocket within our society.
Okay, yeah.
So it's not like, it's not like, oh, we went to an alternate universe where black people are in charge of society and white people are, like they didn't flip-flop that. They just flip-flopped, this town is the opposite of what you expect.
So the all black cast is the obvious answer for what makes this different. But more specifically, based on what you were saying, it uses real black Western figures to reclaim the space the genre usually erased.
Yeah.
So that is something that that Eve and Maria had mentioned, just the same, that there's pieces of this, like the damsel character, that are there because she's a female, but that's where it stops. Right, that's where the similarities end. You have much more of a badass character doing for themselves and helping others rather than just needing someone else to come save them.
To start off, do you recommend the movie?
Absolutely.
Okay. I also recommend the movie. And Alex, I feel like I know your answer, but do you?
Yeah, no, I recommend this. I don't think I've come across a film since we started Cinemen, except for one film that I would not recommend.
The two of us have only had one movie now this is episode
32.
32.
So we've recommended 31 out of 32 films.
Yeah. Which might mean that we're not the most discerning, but also because we're picking movies. A lot of these are classics too. So like we're not like,
that's true.
There hasn't been a whole lot where we're like, I wonder if this is good or not. We're picking movies that other people have said are good.
I'd give it a 10. I thought it was very fun. I mean, I've always liked Westerns. I haven't watched, there really haven't been any really good Westerns in a long time, but there's a lot of activity, and I thought the characters were great. It's definitely.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, good. And then I'm giving it a 9. Because I reserve, 10. I said this last week to Paul, who was our guest, but like I think Alex and I are always going to be a little harsher on ratings because we're watching these so regularly. But yeah, I think this is a 9. This was a really, really fun movie. I can't watch it with Logan, but like if he was older and old enough to watch it and was like, I want to watch that movie, I missed it, I would watch this one again pretty quickly. I also think this one may be better upon rewatch. Like I think this is one of those ones where I think you may get more out of it upon rewatch.
Well, I must have watched it a couple of years ago, and I feel like I did get more out of it the second time, obviously. One of the things I just wanted to mention that I noticed, and we didn't talk about, I don't think, in any other segment, other than the music. We talked a lot about the music, but the only, what's the word I want? Resemblance of an old movie, old Western, is at the very end when they ride off into the sunset. That's a totally different kind of tune. It's just, that's exactly how they always ended the movies, always. Yep. And that's the only part that really felt, and it made sense to me there.
It did, but then they had Regina King's character, again, I'm forgetting her name, Trudy, step into frame because they left her alive, or she escaped or whatever.
Yes.
So they were setting up for a sequel, which I don't think is going to happen. Or they were leaving it open to a sequel. But it's that, and I don't know.
She's watching them ride off into the sunset, though, which happens a lot in.
Yeah. But the implication, I think, was that she was going to go back for more.
It
Yeah.
felt a little like we were setting up for a sequel. I agree.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I agree too.
It's also very, so this probably, when did it actually release? It came out in 2021. It may have been filmed before COVID. And so COVID may have affected the release date and a bunch of other stuff. I'm trying November 3rd. So that November 3rd of 2021. Okay, so it probably, I don't know if it filmed during or before, but that affected a lot of success on things that first year of COVID.
Hmm.
And that may have affected. The reason why this will not, almost certainly not be getting a sequel is because of Jonathan Majors, which we talked about a little bit last week. Mom, you're probably not familiar, but Jonathan Majors, who played Nat Love, 2 years ago was found guilty civilly
Misdemeanor assault.
of beating his ex-girlfriend,
Mm.
and so he's not getting cast in much anymore. And so
That's a shame.
he's a great actor. He's
He's
so
a
good.
great actor, but I get it. I get why they don't want to promote that because.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah, well, and it can tank. It can tank. I know that there's like a lot of stuff about cancellation and people get upset about it, but when you look at somebody like that, it can tank the success of something if you're associated with that. Oh, I'm sorry. One other thing I wanted to mention, which I noticed during the credits, is the producer of this. One of the producers of this, Jay-Z, was one producer, but the other producer is Lawrence Bender, which I would be surprised, Mom, if you're familiar with Lawrence Bender. But Alex, do you know who Lawrence?
His name's familiar.
He's produced like every Tarantino movie, and this had a lot of similarity in style to a Tarantino movie.
Yes,
you know
it
what?
does. Now that you say that.
That comic book confidence.
Yeah.
Now, and that stylistic. Okay, now that's hitting that it has some of the. Okay.
It didn't feel at all like a ripoff of a Tarantino, but it felt like it shared a lot of the same influences and style, which I liked. I was quickly like, oh, I'm gonna like this because I like Tarantino movies, and all right. So, and then for quality, Mom, on a scale of 1 to 10, what would you give this?
I think the quality of it was good. Visually, it was very good. It did, to me, it did not have a feel of being on like a closed set, like a little boxy set, except for the very first scene.
Yeah.
The very first scene, that would make sense. Why would you spend the money to go somewhere?
Yeah.
But the rest of it, I thought, visually, it was everything. Like, even while you were waiting for the next thing to happen, you were looking at something that was catching your attention.
Yeah. Yep. So, but what number?
Oh, number? I'd go with a 9, probably.
Okay. I gave it a 7. With what I will say though is that I reserve like, I think that upon rewatch that number might jump up a little bit, because I think that a lot of what I saw would in retrospect be better, knowing how it plays out and how purposeful it was.
I think for you too, to watch it straight through.
Yeah.
Without interruption,
True.
without pausing and watch, because
not on my phone.
Well, I planned to watch it last night, so I would be fresh with it, and I just put it on and went through the whole thing.
I would have watched it. I would have gotten all the way through it last night, except that I fell asleep.
Yeah,
because
I get it. You got a lot going.
We're moving back, and and I yesterday I had to like make sure I had a space to record that didn't have just stacks of shit behind me. So,
mean, what's my excuse? So I think that, Mike, you gave your rating already?
A 7, yes.
Yeah, you 7. So for me, we have an 8 for fun and watchability. I don't think it was as fun as Mike's 9, because there were those sections that fast motion. It was nice, but I wanted that little bit more
Yeah.
for character diving, and yeah, that might be somewhat quality, but quality to me is also visual. So fun and watchability. I mean, an 8's pretty darn fun out of 10.
Yeah.
So I am in no way saying that this is like as bad as, say, A Christmas Story, for example.
Yeah.
Whereas when I look at quality, I actually aligned with Mike with a 7. So I think that is where that visual hit is there. It's pretty in the way that I want to see something that is colorful in the way that it uses color, the striking differences with the different towns and the costuming all being pretty dark. I enjoyed that, and I watched it mostly on my color corrected monitor, but not all of it. I watched on the TV in the living room, some of it. So there are probably some scenes that when I go back, I'm going to say, oh, that did look better than I thought it did. But in general, the quality is there. And now that you pointed out the specifics with Lawrence Bender also being a producer, like so many of those things that are Tarantino tropes from films like Pulp Fiction and Kill Bill, like Reservoir Dogs even, like that lines up really well the stuff that's in this scene.
Yeah. I think if this had been in theaters, it would have gone up on both. I think it would have done better for me, but I also think it would have done better for audience. Like, there's no way in November of 21 this was is Netflix. It's a Netflix original anyway, but there's no way it would have been in theaters. But if they had planned to put this in theaters, and you get a black audience like to start to go, because that's the initial wave, as you get black people you get people that are the target audience, and then it gets enough word of mouth. I think it would have done well with it would have done better in
theater audiences instead of streaming audiences.
Yeah. All right.
Well, you get the whole different visual, like when you're watching it on the massive screen.
Absolutely.
Anyway,
and the audience gives a vibe too, right? Like there's movies where the whole audience goes together, or like that really enhances a movie for you. That's it. And I think that I think this movie would be better remembered if it had been in theaters. I think people would actually be talking about this more than I don't hear anybody talking about this movie. And I think
I didn't even remember I didn't even remember I watched it until I put it in.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah. Started.
Yeah.
I mean, the name sounded somewhat familiar, but
yeah.
And that's a shame.
Yeah. Yeah. No. This holds. I think this is good and it holds up. First off, next month we're going to be going into movie musicals. The rule that I set up that I think Alex has agreed to, whether or not he likes it or not, is
I don't necessarily like it because it takes away some movies I wanted to do, but I understand the purpose of it.
We can revisit those movies later, but the rule that I've set up for movie musicals is that I want to watch movies this coming month that were movies first, not adaptations of stage musicals. So we're starting off next week with Singing in the Rain. We have not picked out our whole slate yet, but Singing in the Rain was a movie. Then they adapted it to stage. Moulin Rouge, if we can figure out where that's streaming, that is a movie. Then was adapted to stage, as opposed to Sound of Music or Chicago, or So for me, that's where I want to go with movie musicals. I also think that in a lot of cases they're not as well remembered as the other way around. So that's an interesting way to go about it. As Sound of Music, everybody knows, so West Side Story.
Ooh, Labyrinth.
Okay, I'm down.
Maybe.
Yeah, if it's streaming.
I don't know if I've heard of that one.
David Bowie. Jennifer Connelly.
It's on Disney Plus. We might have found another one.
Sweet. But next week is going to be Singing in the Rain, and before we go, I want to say
and others.
thank you to my mom for coming on this episode, and a round of applause from
Round
Alex.
of applause.
And I also want to say, if you haven't already, please hit like and subscribe below. And if you want to get these episodes a little bit early, go to our Patreon. It's just $26 for the year to get access early to every episode as soon as I'm done editing them. So
we would
All right.
appreciate the additional support. If you like these videos, leave comments and interact with them on your streaming platforms, whether you're doing audio on a podcast app or whether you're watching the VOD later on with our smiling faces. We appreciate all of our new subscribers. Thank you guys for being here. We'll see you in the next episode.